Undercover boss grabs quick breakfast, freezes when waitress says she's barely surviving on tips. Some things on a report look perfect, but only when you step inside can you tell what's paint and what's a crack. Early morning, a light drizzle brushed the streets in a thin mist, causing droplets to cling to the front window as if they hadn't decided to fall just yet. It wasn't cold, but no one lingered on the sidewalk for more than a few seconds. Sunrise Diner, Branch 28. The white-painted wooden sign had yellowed with age, hanging slightly askew beside the window. From the outside, the diner looked warm, steady like any typical morning in a restaurant chain that had been rated as operating stably for 6 consecutive quarters. A man walked in, one noticed. Faded jeans, a flannel shirt with worn shoulders, a baseball cap pulled low over his face. His walk was unremarkable, and no one greeted him. To everyone else, he was just a customer looking for a simple breakfast on a damp day. Except, he wasn't a customer. Derek Langston, CEO and founder of the Sunrise Restaurant Group, the man who had spent hundreds of hours building an operations model based on what seemed like a simple principle. Those who do more must be recognized more. But in recent months, something had been bothering him. Not because the numbers were bad, but because they were suspiciously good. Turnover rate at Branch 28 was over 40% higher than the average. Constant shift, change requests. Internal feedback noted growing dissatisfaction without clear reasons. And in the anonymous survey, one line appeared 3 times. Here, only those with power have a voice. Derek sat at a window-side table where he could observe nearly the entire diner without being noticed. He didn't bring a secretary, no camera crew, no announcement. Just a small notebook, in the gaze of someone who knew. Some problems don't show up in data. They show up in the eyes of people too afraid to speak. Outside, the drizzle continued softly. Inside, a stranger ordered a simple breakfast. And behind the counter, a work shift was about to change forever. Some words aren't said to attract attention. They only surface when the speaker has grown used to no one truly listening. "Quickest breakfast in the house," she said, gently placing a plate of eggs and toast in front of Derek. "Black coffee, no sugar, right?" Cassie. Her name tag was pinned, slightly crooked, attached to a uniform that had clearly been through many wash cycles. She wasn't exactly young anymore, but not old enough to be called seasoned. It was only her eyes that looked tired. A kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from having to hold it all together for too long in a life that never takes a break. Derek nodded, replying with a familiar question known he had used many times before to open harmless small talk. "Morning shift treating you any better?" Cassie paused, just for a moment. Then she smiled, not bright, not fake, just enough to show she didn't want to make a fuss. And then, almost like a whisper not meant for anyone in particular, "Morning shifts are the worst for tips, but we still have to split them. And not everyone actually gets a share." She turned away afterward, calling orders to another table as if nothing unusual had just been said. Just another sentence in the hundreds she probably spoke each day. But Derek sat still, as if that sentence hadn't just reached his ears but struck something deep within him that he once believed he had gotten right. Not everyone actually gets a share. 4 years ago, he was the one who had laid the foundation for the digital tip-sharing policy fair, automated, untouchable by human bias. Every tip was to be credited to the person who served the table. No manager interference, no split-it-later practices. And yet now at a branch considered a model example, a staff member said someone was being excluded from their share for some unexplained reason. Derek looked at the plate of eggs in front of him. The food was still hot, but something inside him had gone cold. Not because Cassie was complaining, but because she wasn't. She had simply accepted it. And that acceptance, that quiet resignation, was the most dangerous sign of all. And there was. Injustice isn't always a shout. Sometimes, it's just a single tap on a screen, with your name never appearing on the receipt. Derek sat still through the entire morning shift. The coffee cooled. The pancake plate lost its warmth. But he didn't touch a bite. Instead, he watched the small movements around the diner like someone trying to decode a complex mechanism no one talked about. Cassie. She moved constantly, remembered orders without writing them down, cleared tables, served water, responded to customers all tidy, precise, without a wasted motion. She was the first to greet customers, the last to apologize for a delayed dish, and the only one who never touched the POS terminal. Every time a table was ready to pay, Ryan in a pressed shirt, smiling politely, would step up from the counter, POS machine already in hand, like it had been prearranged. Jason moved more slowly, but still always arrived just in time when a customer pulled out their wallet. Neither of them directly served any tables, but every card swipe went through them. Cassie, the actual server, only stepped back, silent, unreactive. As if she had become used to being excluded from the ending of a story she herself began. Derek didn't need to guess anymore. He left the diner early, but didn't head straight back to headquarters. In his private office, he logged into the internal access control system, accessible only by the top-tier executives. Branch number 28, POS access status. Ryan D, full access. Jason M, limited access. Cassie T, no access. Note, pending competency review, access during peak hours not granted. Proposed by Doug H, final approver. Ryan D. Derek frowned. Pending competency review, a phrase that sounded procedural, but was being used as justification to deny someone fair access. He clicked into the internal training records. Cassie had completed the POS course 6 months ago with an excellent rating, yet she had never been granted official access. Meanwhile, Ryan, whose role was supposed to be technical support, held full authority over POS terminal approvals, a closed loop, a small group holding the keys, and people like Cassie never crossing the threshold. Derek opened the digital tips report from the past 30 days. Ryan received an average of 81% of POS tips, served fewer than 20% of total tables. Jason received 15%, served 10% of tables. Cassie served 52% of all tables, digital tips, 0%. Statistics don't lie. Only people know how to manipulate the data so that fairness becomes a privilege. Derek closed his laptop with a sigh, but what he felt wasn't surprise anymore. Just one question, repeated again and again. How can a system designed for transparency be hidden so easily? And now he had the answer. Through internal nods and the silence of those who didn't believe their voice was worth being heard. Derek didn't close his notebook yet. He opened another layer of data this time, the detailed shift schedule over the past 6 weeks. Cassie's name appeared heavily in morning shifts, often paired with inexperienced or newly hired staff. Lunch and evening shifts, the time blocks with steady flow and predictable tips, always had Ryan or Jason, always in the group with POS access privileges. A pattern emerged. Cassie was consistently scheduled in the most chaotic shifts and consistently excluded from access to any kind of reward. Not because she underperformed, but because she didn't speak up. Derek scrolled through the internal email list. Among dozens of administrative exchanges, he found a recent thread between Duck the manager and Ryan titled, "Pause arrangements for next week. Avoid confusion." One line stood out. Cassie's fine with the skills, but she's too sensitive when it comes to tip sharing. No need to involve her. Just let Ryan handle the terminal, faster. The new hires get starry-eyed seeing a female lead anyway. Derek stopped reading. It wasn't just manipulation. It was discrimination, gender, silence, power, all wrapped up in one line tagged, "Internal, do not forward." He printed out the data file and marked each point, not with rage, but with the cold precision of a man who had already decided to act. Then, he made a call to the regional operations office. "Prepare a surprise audit at branch number 28. I want to go with the audit team. And this time, I won't be in disguise." Derek hung up the phone. Outside the window, the rain had stopped. A narrow beam of sunlight began to slip through the glass, landing on the notebook on his desk where he had just written a new line. Silence is not a lack of ability. It's the result of that ability being excluded from where voices are heard. Why? Not every upheaval begins with the slam of a gavel. Sometimes, it only takes one person to walk in at the right time, in the right role, no longer bowing their head. Friday, 7:41 a.m. Sunrise Diner, branch number 28, was easing into its familiar rhythm. The steady hum of the coffee machine, eggs sizzling on the open kitchen pan, customers flipping menus like everything was just fine. Duck, the manager, stood behind the counter, adjusting his collar, eyes flicking toward the POS screen. Cassie had just wiped down table 3, still unaware that the clock on the wall was about to strike a moment no one saw coming. The door opened. 4 people walked in, 3 in white shirts with name tags reading Internal Audit, Sunrise HQ. The one at the back, tall, calm stride, no introduction needed. Derek Langston, null cap, no disguise. Just himself, the CEO of the entire system, walking into the very place that had hidden things no report could reveal. Doug spotted him and hesitated mid-step. "Mr. Langston, you didn't announce." Derek didn't stop. He signaled. A laptop was opened. connected to the main screen mounted behind the counter. Every eye from staff to mid-bite customers turned to the screen. The first slide appeared. Cassie T. served 62 tables in 7 days. Post transactions, 0. Digital tips credited, Ryan D. Joe. Then came the internal email excerpt. She's good, but it's easier if Ryan handles the terminal. The new hires get distracted seeing a female lead hurts performance. Derek stepped forward. He didn't give a speech. He simply spoke in a voice where every word was quiet, heavy, and undeniable. We built this system so that effort would never go unseen. But here it's been twisted into a key only the favored few are allowed to hold. Doug stood frozen. Ryan pulled his hand back from the POS terminal, his face drained of all color. Cassie doesn't lack competence, Derek continued. What she's been lacking is something this system should have given her from the start. A chance to be seen. A chance for her work to have a name behind it. He gave a small nod to the HR staff standing beside him. 2 envelopes were pulled out, immediate termination letters, effective right away. No defenses. No quiet settlements. Derek turned to face the entire diner, both staff and customers. From today, the entire digital tip-sharing system here will display in real time. Whoever serves gets recognized. No more inner circles. No more we'll tally it after the shift. And offer. Fairness doesn't clock out. His eyes stopped on Cassie, who was still holding a tray of water, frozen mid-step. She stood still. Her eyes met his, and this time, she didn't look down like on so many mornings before. And you, he said quietly, thank you for staying silent long enough to make us stop. Cassie didn't say anything, but in her eyes, those eyes that had always avoided meeting others, there was something different now. Not surprise, not even emotion, but something only those who've lived in invisibility understand. For the first time, she was called by name without needing to raise her hand. Inside the diner, the clinking of utensils against plates continued, but one thing had changed. The silence that used to be routine was no longer whole. Other employees, a young barista near the coffee machine, a kitchen staff member peeking through the pass window had paused, not because they were summoned, but because in their eyes, a vague hope was beginning to feel real. Ryan stared at the floor. Doug raised his hand, as if to speak but let it fall, realizing nothing he could say would soften the numbers just shown on that screen. Excuses were too late, and the power that once kept people silent was no longer a shield, but a spotlight. Derek turned back to the operations terminal, typing a direct command into the central POS control panel. Activate real-time tip-sharing mode. Display the name of the server after each transaction. Remove all discretionary POS assignment privileges. All new access must be approved by regional executive level. Asterisk, asterisk. As he hit confirm, a soft chime sounded from the digital board, as if the system itself had just awakened from a long sleep powered by favoritism. A new line appeared at the bottom of the screen. Starting today, every service is a signature. And fairness no longer waits for shift's end. Cassie didn't take her eyes off the screen. But then, very gently, she set the tray of water down on the counter, placing both hands on the wooden surface, as if to steady herself. Derek gave one final nod, not to anyone in particular, but to the very promise he had written in his notebook years ago. A good system doesn't just record who messes up. It must be transparent enough so that those doing right no longer have to go hungry for staying quiet. And Sue, some changes don't come with drums and fanfare. They only need one person who used to be overlooked to step into the light, not for glory, but simply to no longer be forgotten. 1 month later, early morning sunlight streams through the freshly cleaned windows, casting golden beams across the honeycomb-tiled floor of Sunrise Diner, branch number 28. The diner hums with its usual energy, but something feels unmistakably clearer. Above the counter, a digital screen softly glows with each passing second, displaying Live Tips Tracker, real time, transparent, equal. Under every transaction is the name of the server and the tips recorded. Each swipe of a card is no longer just payment. It's a signature confirming who was truly behind the smiles, the hot plates, the quiet apologies for late orders. Behind the counter, more precisely now, Cassie T., assistant manager, steps out. Her new uniform is charcoal gray with crimson trim, her hair neatly tied up, name tag firmly pinned to her chest. But the biggest change isn't the title, it's the way she carries herself. She no longer avoids anyone's gaze. She walks through the diner like she knows, without a doubt, every step is now acknowledged. Derek sits at the same table by the window where everything had started, with a cup of black coffee and what seemed like an offhand comment. Maya brings the coffee over, gently sets it down. This time, her voice doesn't carry hesitation. This morning, I'm not skipping my own breakfast anymore. I just needed a chance, thank you for seeing that. Derek looks up. He doesn't rush to answer. He looks at the steaming coffee still hot, still strong like always. But this time, it wasn't just coffee. It was the distillation of a system that had been fixed not by a new software, but by a new mindset. To listen more carefully, to look more deeply, and to trust what hadn't yet been spoken. He nods. Thank you for not giving up before we finally woke up. Maya smiles, not brightly, not forced, just as it truly is. A smile from someone whose name is no longer erased from the share. Behind the counter, a new employee tapped the POS terminal. His name appeared on the screen, along with the tip amount from table 6. He glanced quickly, then looked at Maya. She gave a small nod. No words were needed, because from now on, fairness doesn't need permission. It just needs to be redesigned so that the right person doing the right work is named rightly. Derek took a small sip. The coffee was still bitter, still just the way he liked it. But today it left a different aftertaste. Trust. A boy, about 7, walked into the diner with his mother, holding a dripping wet umbrella. They chose a table near the back, the same table where, just a month ago, Cassie had quietly wiped away rainwater from a hurried customer. Today, a young employee approached them with a warm smile, took their order confidently, the confidence of someone who knows their work will be acknowledged the moment it's done. Derek followed the scene with his eyes, which paused at the digital board behind the counter. The name of the server lit up next to the tips from the last customer. A small green dot blinked next to the name. Confirmed, paid in real time. No manager approval needed. No waiting until the end of day report. On the other side of the counter, Maya was jotting something into the new shift roster. Now, instead of messy handwritten lists and assignments based on favoritism, each shift is tied to a system of public, transparent, automated display. She stood up, walking toward a new hire, fumbling with a tray of drinks. No scolding, no raised voice, just a quiet instruction. It's okay to go slow as long as you're walking forward by yourself. The young worker looked up, surprised, then nodded. Here, no one has to fight for POS access to be seen. Every tap on the terminal now stands as a silent declaration. I was here, I did what's right, and the system confirms it. Derek set his cup down, an old ceramic mug, still bearing a small crack near the rim, but today he didn't mind. Because if an old mug can still hold warmth, then a system that was once unjust can also hold trust as long as someone's willing to repair it, one piece at a time. On the digital board behind the counter, a final line slowly scrolled across like a quiet message. Every name deserves to be counted. Every hand deserves to be seen. Derek smiled, not because the system was now perfect, but because today it had learned how to start again by finally naming those it once overlooked.